Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Cover 4 podcast for this week as Randy Gibson and I get ready to talk a little bit about college football, high school football, and a few other things here on, we're taping this on Wednesday. We've had some things going on earlier in the week, so we had to tape this thing on Wednesday evening. And Randy, it's OU good to get back on the field as they had the week off, and you're going to be heading back to Norman come Saturday.
Yep, Jim, I'm going home to the Palace on the Prairie come Saturday for Oklahoma homecoming. I'm very excited to be back. Actually, we'll be in town Thursday night and going to spend the weekend in Norman. Got my crimson colored glasses all packed and ready to go to the game. Got my Sooner hat on. I am ready to go and ready for the Sooners to become 7-0.
And they've got to play Central Florida, new member of the Big 12, and a familiar face will be on the sideline. Gus Malzahn, former head football coach in high school at Shiloh Christian over in Springdale. It's where he got his start, and then progressed into college coaching. He was offense coordinator at University of Tulsa for a little bit before moving on and getting a head coaching job. He was at Auburn, got let go there, got paid very nicely after getting fired there at the Plains, and then landed at Central Florida. And this is his second year, I believe, down there.
I think so. A lot of Oklahoma ties to the Central Florida Golden Knights. You know, I mean, Josh Heupel, coach there as well. Now coach of Tennessee, former OU quarterback, national champion at OU. And on the flip side, there's going to be a familiar face for UCF on the Oklahoma sideline with Dylan Gabriel.
Yep, that's going to be an interesting game. Can we say it could wind up being a track meet again?
It could be, with Oklahoma's defense as well as their plan. I don't know how well the Knights will be able to run the ball. They're going to have to probably rely pretty heavily on the pass. It's going to be interesting with Oklahoma's defensive line and linebackers. I don't know, Jim. They're playing pretty good. It's the best I've seen Oklahoma in many, many years.
It'll be an interesting game. It'll be on ABC, which will be Channel 8 here in our area. 11 o'clock kick, as we talked about. You got you said a 6 a.m. rehearsal.
Oh my gosh. As alumni, I hate, and I speak for all of the alumni from the OU band alumni group, we absolutely hate it when homecoming is an 11 o'clock game. We have a call for a rehearsal at 6 a.m. And a few years ago, my daughter, Wendy, who was in the high school band, you know, she had early morning practices and I'd have to get up and take her. And when she was a freshman at OU, Jim, it was really cute. She posted on her Facebook page, in a strange turn of events, I'm taking my dad to an early morning band rehearsal. Yeah. Whenever she was driving me from her apartment in Norman over to drop me off. But oh my gosh, bunch of middle-aged folks trying to get up and go march and play instruments at 6 a.m. Not an easy thing to do anymore for us. But
it's not easy for me because I'm going to have the 6 a.m. wake up call Saturday as I'm working the Arkansas-Mississippi State game over in Fayetteville. And I try to get to lot 56, which is at the corner of Old 62 and Razorback Road where we park. And they start the shuttle 3 hours prior to the ball game. So I hop
Wow.
on that first bus, get off at gate one, which is the southwest corner of Razorback Stadium, and then walk over to the production truck, which is over in the southeast corner of the stadium. And then check in with them, tell them, hey, I'm here. And if they need anything from me before I head up to the press box. Backpack on my back, and I let the security guys put the sticker around the top of my
Yep.
uh, backpack,
Around
and
your bag.
then
Yep.
trek on up, get over to the elevator, go up to the third level at the
Yep.
there at the stadium, and I'm in the writers area. That's where I sit with the stat crew. So
You know, most people don't know how that works. So, of course, most stadiums around the country, Arkansas and Oklahoma for sure, and BYU, I know for a fact, all three do. You got to have the clear bags now.
yes,
But for
everybody
us
does now.
media, yeah, but for us media members, we carry big time equipment in hard cases and soft sided cases, but
Mhm.
the black bags ain't clear because we don't necessarily want people seeing computers and iPads and
Right,
video equipment and all that kind of stuff. So we do as media, we do get to go in, but the security check that stuff pretty close. And like you said, they have to put the security tags around the bag before you can get through that gate.
right, and that's not only us, but also the team members, because where I go in is where the visiting team goes in.
Hmm.
So, uh, where they come in, they're in the southeast corner of Razorback Stadium. I will go on down to the
Hmm.
southwest corner where the elevator's at. Well, the locker room is right there, and you can
Hmm.
walk out onto the field uh, if you want to. Uh, I have not done that. I have never
Yeah.
walked onto the field there at Razorback Stadium, but I pretty much go upstairs and get my sit down and get my stuff out, get the flip card, which is the little sheet that they produce and has the two deep on there, the
Hmm.
roster, and you've seen them. I've seen them. In fact, I bring it back every time I come to a ball game, come back from a ball game. So yeah, it's a little different for people like us whenever you're working for Compass Media, doing radio, which I'm doing the stats, and hopefully I don't get drugged back to the talent booth like I did for the BYU game.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm hoping, Jim, whenever we get into the SEC, that we get to work some of those SEC Oklahoma games.
Yeah, I hope so too. It's we could get in my car and I know where to go, and you and I
Yeah,
can catch that bus and we can hopefully do that. I'm not sure how the SEC uh, games are as far as uh, not being with the radio teams, with the ball clubs. Uh, I do know they do it, and they're away from the press box. Uh, they're off in a corner to my right.
hmm,
Uh, but I'd have to look and see what it does look like. And I'm not sure if Compass does it or if somebody else does
I
those
don't
ball
know.
games. I'm not real
I
sure.
don't know. I don't know. It'll be interesting for me next year. And I know we're getting a little off track, but to go back and instead of working Oklahoma games, working Oklahoma State games, which is
Yeah,
very possible.
that's very, very possible for you with the Big 12 being with Compass as far as the national broadcast is concerned.
Mhm. And I know Compass does some Pac-12 games too because they've done the Utah game before. And
Mhm.
so with Utah moving into the Big 12, I'm hoping that maybe I can get up to Salt Lake City and do some of the Ute games, or here in Provo with some of the BYU games too.
You and Scott Miller.
Be fun.
Yeah, it would.
A lot of fun.
Uh, Oklahoma State, well, they've got to go on the road to a place that has bitten the Sooners a couple of
Yep.
times. They got to go to Morgantown. They got to take on the Mountaineers of West Virginia, and that will be following the Arkansas game on ESPN at 2:30.
Yeah, and let's talk about West Virginia. When that bell rings in Morgantown,
Mm-hmm.
people get attention. And I don't know, Jim, do you think there's going to be any burning couches this weekend out
I
there?
don't know. Who knows?
It's going to be interesting. They had just an absolutely crazy game against Houston
Yeah.
last week. Another
Mm-hmm.
Big 12, newbie in the Big 12. And I mean, Houston, Donovan Smith, the Houston quarterback, 49-yard Hail Mary right as the time has expired. Tip on the goal line, and receiver Johnson snatched the tip and a win for the Cougars, 41
Mm-hmm.
to 39. And that just came just practically seconds after West Virginia had scored to go ahead.
Yeah. That's that is a you know you go to Morgantown and there's crazy things, and you've seen it and I've seen it
Yeah.
too. It's a crazy place to play at, and you if they win, well, you get serenaded by an old John Denver classic,
Yep.
"Take Me Home, Country Roads," and
Country
you've
roads.
heard it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, yeah. Have. Yep. It's going to be interesting. It's always interesting in Morgantown.
It really is.
Yep.
Uh, TU's got the game as we tape it on Wednesday tomorrow night. They've got the other team from Houston, the Rice Owls, coming
Rice Owls. Yep.
to Skelly Stadium, and that's
Yeah.
a
I
6 o'clock kick on ESPN2.
isn't this the third game Tulsa's played against Owls?
Yes, yes,
Kind of interesting, isn't it?
that's a very interesting quirk that the American uh, come up with, is that
Mm-hmm.
you play a team that their nickname is Owls, not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row.
Tell
That's
you,
that's one for the book.
it really is. And, Tulsa right there in the heart of Native American country, being Native American, I can say this,
Mhm.
owls are kind of a thing that we're kind of leery of as
Yeah,
natives. So, Tulsa playing the owl teams 3 times this year could have been considered a bad omen in a way. But
it
we'll
could
we'll
be,
see.
yes,
We'll see
but
what happens tomorrow night. It's going to be interesting.
TU's playing fairly well, coming into the ball game, but even though they lost in that monsoon down in Orlando
Hmm.
to Florida Atlantic, but they've had the week off. They were like OU. They had the week off uh, coming into this ball game, so they got to watch Rice play last week.
That would
So
be good for them.
it will. It really will.
I really hope the best for Kelton Wilson um, and the TU Golden Hurricane. I hope that program can get lifted up a bit.
They there's one thing, and this is the athletic director there, which is Rick Dixon. He's done a heck of a job getting that thing back together. And I'm pulling up the TU schedule right now, thanks to having it on the phone. They play Rice, then they got to go to Dallas uh, next week, and they got to play SMU. Then come back and play Charlotte at home. So North Carolina, Charlotte. Then here's a scary one. They got to go to Tulane, Veterans
Mm.
Day.
Tulane's they're really a shocking team. A few years ago when
Yeah.
Lincoln Riley was still at Oklahoma, they gave Oklahoma fits down to the wire.
Mm-hmm.
That was the game that they moved. It was supposed to have been a home game for Tulane, remember, and they had to move it to
Had
Norman
to
because
move
of
it
the
because of the
hurricane.
hurricane. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they still, holy cow, they took it right down to the end. And
And
then to turn around and face Lincoln again in the bowl game last year and
mhm.
win.
Yes. Yeah, at Jerry's place.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cotton Bowl, yep.
Then they've got North Texas at home, finish at East Carolina on the
Mm-hmm.
25th of November. So, can they get to the title game? I don't know if they can get to the American title game, but they'll probably have a say so in who gets there.
Probably so. That's
Mhm.
the way it's kind of panning out right now.
Yep. And we talked about it earlier. Arkansas finally back home after going through and having to play 4 straight weeks on the road, which they were
Man,
the designated home team in Arlington, but still, you
still a
had
road
to
game.
get on the plane. They had
Yeah.
to load up uh, the semi to go to Baton Rouge, to Arlington, to Oxford, and Tuscaloosa. And now this week they get to park that darn thing, and they're at home against Mississippi State at 11 o'clock. And like OU, it is homecoming in Fayetteville. So
Yep, it is. Happy homecoming to the Razorbacks. Hopefully they can get a win over there.
you take a look and you take out the A&M game. They lose by 3 to LSU, 7 to Ole Miss, and 3 against Bama, and
Hmm.
had Bama on the ropes in the fourth
Yeah, they
quarter.
did. They sure did. That's less than 2 touchdowns in for 3 games
Yep.
lost.
Mm-hmm.
And they were having some of the problems that Oklahoma had last year, you
Mm-hmm.
know, losing, I think what Oklahoma, they lost 4 games by a total of 12 points or
Yep.
something like that. I mean, it was
Something like that.
ridiculous.
Yes.
You would think they would catch a break eventually. But man, I tell you, going on the road is difficult in any conference, but especially in the SEC. And you go on the road 3 weeks out of 4, which really that fourth one again down in Arlington, you can't really count that as a home game either.
No.
Um,
Even
you
though
know,
Jerry's paying the bill.
oh yeah, it's just like Oklahoma, Texas. Everybody, says, well, Oklahoma's the home team. I don't care. Arkansas is like Oklahoma in that part. You're still in Texas. It may
Yes.
be halfway. It may be at the halfway point. You may have a lot of fan support, but you're still playing in Texas. So not an easy thing to do.
No. No. And after this ball game, they get the week off.
Well
Then
deserved.
very well deserved. And then the final road trip to the swamp,
Mm-hmm.
play Florida. Then you come home and you see War Eagle, that's Auburn at
Mm-hmm.
home, Veterans Day. And I look for something special flyover for that game.
I'm sure.
Then Florida International on the 18th, and then day after Thanksgiving is the Battle Line game against Missouri.
Missouri. Yep. It's always a good one.
Yep.
Speaking of homecomings, I'll just throw in it's my BYU Cougars homecoming as well
And
this
who have they got?
weekend. They've got the Texas Tech Red Raiders are coming to
That's right.
Provo.
Yeah.
Yeah, which of course they went down to Kansas State last week. Kansas State, if they wanted to stay in contention in the Big 12, they very much needed that win that they got in Lubbock.
Mhm.
last
Well,
week.
and then BYU went to Fort Worth and
Oh,
literally laid an egg. Uh,
yeah, they did.
they everybody, I mean, the whole team, and it started off with a pick six, and it went downhill from there. And uh,
Yeah,
guys on Hog Talk, that's another podcast over in the Fayetteville area, or even could be even in Little Rock. Uh, they put a question out about about Arkansas, you know, and they were talking about the BYU loss.
hmm
And I told them, I said, "Hey, BYU's better than you think they are."
they are.
And I've caught some heck from some people over there saying,
hmm
what are you talking about? They got beat 44-11. I said, wait a minute, folks. You better watch it because they have two big ball games coming up, and it's next week, and they've got to go to DKR. That's Darrell K. Royal State Memorial Stadium in
Yep,
Austin,
in Austin.
and they got to play Texas. And Texas better
hmm
beware because they'll probably look at that tape against Arkansas and say,
Yeah,
wait a minute, guys, we better be on our toes. And then I also told them, I said, that game on November 18th
hmm
against OU at Provo could
yep,
be a night game.
yep.
That'll be a whiteout
Could be.
and possibly a true whiteout because it
But
could be played
it
in the
could be
blizzard.
snow. You never know. I keep telling everybody back home, and they're listening because I hear sports talk back home, as you do, back in
Uh-huh.
Norman, coming from Norman. They're not taking BYU lightly
Yeah,
already.
they
They are
better not.
focused because they know what BYU can do. Oklahoma has never beaten BYU. They lost in the Copper Bowl back in the 90s, and then they lost down in Jerry's World, the first game at Jerry's World, in fact. Um, when Sam Bradford, you remember, came back after the play for the national championship where the Sooners lost to the Florida Gators with Tim Tebow. And it was Tebow versus Bradford, and Oklahoma lost. They were 6 points short on that game. But, you know, they played BYU and everybody thought it was going to be a rout. And Bradford got his shoulder hurt, and Landry Jones came in for his first of how many ever years he was there 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we kind of lost count after a
Yeah,
while. He was
yeah.
there forever, it seemed like. But, you know, you just never can count BYU out. I talk to people here in Provo, and they all have the mindset of, oh, we're going to get stopped by Oklahoma. But they do admit, though, well, you know what's really strange? We will beat a big, high powered team like Utah or
Mhm,
Baylor when they were up, which they did, and then turn around and lose to Liberty. You know,
mhm.
you just never know with BYU. They're all over the map.
Yeah. And like I say, you get out there on a Saturday night, which it could be, uh,
hmm
anything can happen.
I'll tell you, Jim, I have been to those BYU games, and you get a night game in November, late October or November. You're right. Absolutely anything can happen. Never take BYU for granted at a home game, especially at night.
Well, I'll tell you, there was a lot of blue and sections 110 and 111 in Fayetteville. I can attest to that. They
I
they
can
brought a bunch of folks.
I can promise you there will be a lot of blue amidst the burnt orange of Texas in Austin that day too. BYU
Yes.
has a huge fan support in Austin, San Antonio, and in that area. And
Mhm.
even as far as I will guarantee you, fans from as far as Dallas will be driving down and going to that game.
And I look for the fans, the BYU people, they donated a lot of food in
hmm
Fayetteville to the food bank. I look for them to do the same thing in Austin.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Wouldn't surprise me a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, the alumni clubs in all those big cities, they're very active. They've got a lot of support. Yeah, and if you've never been to a BYU game, whether it's either an away game for them or out here, or especially out here in Provo, they're different.
Yeah.
They really are different. I
Mhm.
keep telling a lot of my friends and family back home say, well, I don't know, I'm pretty strong on the Sooners, and I'm got a pretty big mouth when I get to the games. I don't want to go out there and get into some legal trouble. And I'm like, look, I can tell you, it'll be the most friendliest away game you've ever
Yes.
been to in your life.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, talked about the big four, and now let's talk about the Redmen as they
Hmm.
get ready for the President's Cup game Saturday night at 6 against UCO
Yep.
after running into probably the most high powered ball
Ooh.
club that has ever played here at Gable Field and Doc Wadley Stadium. Uh,
Mm.
UC Central Missouri, the UCM as they are called, they scored on their first 8 possessions. Uh, listen to JJ Monday at the quarterback club meeting down at Emery's Grill here in town, and he told me, he said, "Hey, this guy that is their quarterback, he transferred in from Southern Illinois, and he was just spot on. They run the air raid. It's a true Mike Leach style air raid offense. It's boom, 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 boom. You can't get set. You can't get the speed. No way at practice they could emulate the speed that they run. And they scored quick. We went 3 and out. They get the ball back. Next thing you know, you look up and it's 14-0 before you got your popcorn open.
Yeah.
And 28-0 at the end of one. And it went, they pulled the quarterback when they scored their 8th touchdown. And he's watched on the sideline with his baseball cap on. They only scored 7 after they put him on the
Mm.
bench, but they didn't need him after, I think they pulled him with 4 minutes to go in the first half.
Oh my word.
That's that's how legit this guy was. And got beat 63-24, but the guys hung in there. They competed second half, uh,
Hmm.
and they outscored them in the second half, but just got behind the 8 ball, couldn't get ahead of the chains, and they wound up seeing UCM do exactly what they've done to everybody except one, and that's Pittsburgh State, and they're 1 point away from being undefeated. They're
Wow.
17th last week in the country, and let me just take a look here, see where they're at this week.
This week, you talking
They're
about,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, UCM?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure where they're at this week.
now let me go to trusty D2 football.com and the top 25 poll for this week. They are, well, number one is a new number one, Colorado School of the Mines
Hmm.
is the out in Pueblo. They're the number one team. Pittsburgh State is third. Uh, Ferris State got beat, so they dropped to number 5. And taking a look down the list,
Yule's,
they're still 17,
yep.
6-1,
And
17th in the country.
but they're going to have a good game. They're facing number 23 Emporia State.
Right. Yeah. It'll be very interesting to see how that comes out.
Yeah, it will.
And see, see if the regional rankings are out. No, they're not yet. They won't come out for a couple of more weeks. That determines who gets into the playoffs. And the game, again, it's a 6 o'clock kickoff. And encourage everybody to try to go and watch it because it's fall break here.
Fall break, fun night game, last 6 o'clock game for the Redmen.
Mm-hmm.
I call them Redmen. Sorry,
That's okay.
Riverhawks. They're
That's
always going to be Redmen to me.
they're
So
always they're always Redmond, and at least here, but they will get a chance to go up and watch them. It could be a pretty good ball game because UCO is a 500 club. They're talking like they have switched quarterbacks. They were kind of pass happy, and now they're running the football, which might be a good thing for Northeastern. So
mhm.
we'll find out. And on another thing, uh, on the 3rd of November is going to be the Hall of Fame ceremony. It's going to be the Hall of Fame banquet. At,
Oh, on
and
Friday night.
yeah, it's on Friday night. Me get some info on it because you can go on to the Go Riverhawks Go website. You go to Go Riverhawks Go excuse me, GoRiverhawksGo.com/tickets, and you can go there and get the tickets for that event. It's going to be out at the Chota Center, out at Cherokee Casino. Is where the Hall of Fame ceremony is going to be, and trying to get the Hall of Fame stuff here. Let me search for it here. Try to. I know they've had it on here, but I can't find the darn thing right now. But you can go onto the website and it'll tell you about uh, tickets for it. You've got to get your tickets by next Friday, the 26th, so they know how many heads going to be out there. Uh, Dallas Curtis is one of the people that's going into the Hall of Fame. But the biggest one, St. Louis Cardinals pitcher Ryan Helsley, former Sequoia Indian,
Awesome.
and pitched for Northeastern, had his number 8 retired last fall. He will be one of the honorees for
Wow.
the Hall of Fame. He'll be here for that. I was glad that they're having it now instead of right before spring training. So he'll be in attendance come next Friday night, well, 2 weeks from Friday night, out at Cherokee Casino there in the Chota Center.
Awesome. Be good for them. It'll be their senior game too for
Yeah.
Northeastern.
See, let's see
That
what.
next day, the Hall of Fame game will be their senior day.
Let's see. Let me get the schedule back up.
Yeah, they'll be taking on Northwest Missouri.
Yeah, that's right.
At two,
Okay.
at,
Yeah.
at 2 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. I will trust you on that one before I pull the schedule back up. And yeah, because the D2s, they end on the 11th. So yeah, because the playoffs begin the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it will be senior day and Hall of Fame day there against the Bearcats.
Yep.
Let's turn the page over to high school, and Tigers, after getting drilled by the number 1 team in the state, Muskogee,
Skokie Roughers.
67-0. It's like
Yeah.
I said, speed kills. It was 35-0 at the end of one, and it got worse from there. They have to travel to Oklahoma City Friday night and take on uh, the U.S. Grant Generals, and they're a team that they go through every year. They're not that great. I don't know when the last time they have won a ball game, to be honest with you. And they'll play Friday night over there because they're like everybody else, like in Tulsa, they have to share fields. So I'm not sure which stadium they will play at. They could play at Taft Stadium, which is a historic
Hmm.
stadium there that they've redone. I know that, but where they're going to play at, uh, not real sure. And they don't list where the game is being played at there in Oklahoma City, but they'll be played Friday night. Um, Hopefully, if they get that, that'll be 3 wins in the district. And if you could get another one, possibility of playing on the 10th at home in the first round of the playoffs.
I hope they can pull this off. I would really like to see Tahlequah make the playoffs again,
Yep.
especially a home game.
Yes, especially a home game. Yes. And they got talking about the Generals, they got shut out by Booker T 63-0
Mm.
last week at S.E. Williams in Tulsa. So both teams coming off of getting shut out uh, last week. So hopefully the orange and white will be able to get a win on the road come Friday night in Oklahoma City.
Hmm.
Then they've got to get on the road again, and they've got to go to Stillwater before coming back home. Final game of the season against the Bartlesville Bruins. So, and speaking about Tahlequah High School cross country,
Yeah.
McKenna Hood, she won the Metro Lakes Conference uh, individual title running here on the home course. They're just west of the junior high. She announced yesterday she will be signing a letter of intent to continue her cross country career as a kangaroo at Missouri, Kansas City.
Oh, really?
She announced it yesterday.
Well, that's
It's,
fantastic. Congratulations to her.
yep. And the early signing period ought to be coming up here pretty soon. I figure she will sign at that point. And she will have a chance to get that third blue and gold All-State jacket here in just a couple of weeks. The regional is going to be held at O'Brien Park in North Tulsa, and then the state meet is in Edmond at Santa Fe.
Very good.
So she'll be getting ready to sign that letter of intent here pretty soon, and hopefully I can go up there. And I told Robin, her mom, that if she needed pictures, let me know, and I can get my camera out and shoot some
Oh,
pictures.
yeah.
So, uh, Sequoia try to bounce back off after losing to Prague at home 47-21. They've got to go down I-40 and they've got to go to Roland, take on the Rangers. And that's a Thursday night game because it is spring, fall break or teachers meeting week, as I used to call it.
Hmm.
Some of them are playing Thursday night. Last week, this week, Sequoia is out, so they're playing their game Thursday night down at Roland. And they get that one, they get a couple of more wins they'll be second in their district and they'll get to host the first round.
Let's hope that for Sequoia. I'm sure it'd be fun hosting that first round on that new turf of theirs too.
And speaking about that, if you go on Facebook and put AstroTurf in the search, uh, there is pictures and description about the turf that was laid down there at Thompson Field.
Very good.
And it's their state of the art AstroTurf that they put down. And you can talks about not only the turf, but also talks about Sequoia itself.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's real good. Have fun for them. Have fun for those kids.
Keys, the Cougars, after beating my alma mater, Warner, 28-26 on the road, well, they got to continue on the road, but they got to face their arch rival in the Battle of Highway 82. They got to go down to Vian and take on the Wolverines.
Yep.
That will not be easy.
Always a fun game. Always a fun rival game between those two schools, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And they here's an ironic thing about the Vian Wolverines. It's about the head coach. And if I can find it. Now I've got it. Their head coach is Gary Willis. He is the Keys Cougars' first head coach. He left and landed down at Vian. And he is down there, and they'll play on Thursday night and down at St. John Stadium in Vian. And it, like I say, it'll be an interesting ball game, but Vian, they're always speedy. And I think they've got a guy's son that I know quite well. You've heard of Kenyatta Wright.
Oh, yeah.
Played at Oklahoma State.
OSU,
played in the pros, played for the Jets. And I think his son plays down there for Vian. So then it's another thing, the field down there is like Thompson Field. It's and Boone Pickens Stadium. It's an Aggie field, east-west. It's an east-west field down there.
Yeah.
That's
interesting. It's, seeing those fields, you would think it wouldn't make a difference. But when you're down there performing or playing, it really does make a difference whether it's a north to south field or an east to west field.
You have marched at Boone Pickens.
Yes, I hated going to Boone Pickens Stadium because something just felt the magnetic force was off somehow. And I kind of felt that way when we went to University of Tulsa too.
Even though it's a north-south.
Yeah, I don't know. There was just something that seemed like the way it's situated, it almost seems like a diagonal or something. I don't know. It's just different. But Boone Pickens was really hard to march on because of that east to west. And you wouldn't think it would make any difference, but it does.
It does, yeah. Well, we played on it. Tahlequah played on it in the state championship game. So, yeah. For Keys, this is their last road game. They get their final two at home. They got Okemah and then Henrietta, the last two down at Jerry Hood Stadium. And they could get another win or two, they could wind up in the playoffs, but they would have to go on the road. The first round game. Then Hulbert still looking for that first win. They're 0-7, and they've got this is their senior night Friday night as they take on Wyandotte, and then they will travel to Concord and then to Quapaw for their last two games of the 2023 season. So hopefully the Riders can not be 0-10. Hopefully they
Let's
can
hope not.
at least get one and get a victory in one of these final three games of the season. So other ball games, watched quite a bit of that Washington Oregon game. But that was wild.
That was a heck of a game, wasn't it?
Yes, and
It
Oregon
had
had
a lot
a
of
chance.
had a lot of Heisman Trophy eyes on it too, between the two quarterbacks. And
Yes,
man, Penix come out on top of that one.
yeah, but I still think you got to take a look at Bo because Bo
Mm-hmm.
Nix is a heck of a quarterback. He's got that taste of Southeastern Conference, which his dad played at Auburn,
Mm-hmm.
and it just didn't work out for him down there. The coaching change, and then he decided to go out west, and he's done quite well with the Ducks.
Yeah, he has. And despite that Washington game, I mean, that's just one of those other toss-up games. Don't count Oregon out of
No,
any of it at this point. I There's a former OU coach and quarterback that are going to have to go to Eugene a couple of
yeah,
weeks from now, and they're going to have a really rough time when they head into Eugene and start that game.
yeah, and they had a very bad game Saturday night under
Oh,
the Golden Dome.
yes, they did. It
That
was
was the first
atrocious for them.
time that Caleb Williams has been picked off three times in a ball game ever.
First time ever. Yeah. I don't know. It was really interesting. I talked to some folks back home about this. He just he's an outstanding quarterback, but he can't do it all by himself.
And he's having to try to do it.
He is. The offensive line, they're not protecting him at all.
No,
The receivers, even, you can't depend on them. Another one from Oklahoma that was a superstar at Oklahoma when he was a freshman, Mario Williams, number 4, the other Williams. When he was at Oklahoma, we called him Super Mario. He was the one that fumbled and had the scoop and score, or scoop down to the 1 or whatever it was, I think, and led to 7 points for Notre Dame. He doesn't look good. None of the receivers look good. I don't know. It's just Caleb Williams is having to do everything by himself, and his body language at the post-game press conference was sure showing it.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was
they've
seeing a
still
lot
got
of
to play.
disgust.
Like I say, they got to go to Eugene, and then they still got that rivalry game, the in-city rivalry game with UCLA.
Mm-hmm. And they still got to play Utah, who is without Cam Rising. We're starting to wonder if he's ever going to get back this year or not at this point. But still, that's not going to be a pushover game against Utah. And like you said, the in-city rivalry. So of those 4 hard games they've got left, Jim, I could see them losing at least 2 of them.
Mm-hmm. Where's that game at for Utah? Is it in LA or is it Salt Lake?
It's back out at the Coliseum. It's in LA.
Okay. All right.
Which is going to be USC's only saving grace for that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Had a thing on social media. In fact, a place that has just come into Tahlequah, Whataburger, had a promotion, which they're a big sponsor of the Alamo Bowl. And they said, who's going to be in the Alamo Bowl for a chance at tickets down there? And You know who I put?
USC?
No,
Who?
for the Pac-12, Colorado,
Colorado?
and for the Big 12, OSU.
OSU? OSU, they've they've visited they visited the Alamo quite a bit, as I recall, over the
Yes.
past several years, over the past couple of decades.
Mhm.
They've they've done pretty well down there overall. I think it's a good bowl for them.
It is.
It would be a good game to watch Mike Gundy go up against Prime.
It really would. And that's the
It'd be
reason
fun.
why I put it on there. And could it be, we talked about this last week
Hmm.
about Mike saying, Stoops was 56 when he retired. He's 56 right now. Could he been hinting that he might decide to hang it up after this year?
It's going to be interesting to see, isn't it?
Yeah,
To me, Mike is still so young, but I guess he really he really isn't. But he still seems, I mean, compared to a lot of the other coaches, he still has a long career left at Oklahoma State. And I feel like Mike could stay at OSU as long as he wanted.
he does. He would. I mean, he has. I mean, his fingerprints are all over Oklahoma State football.
They are.
And you know that as well
Hmm.
as I do. And if he decides to hang it up, we touched on it. Could Kale take over as the head coach?
I don't know. He could. I think the check would have to be really big. I,
Mm,
I mean, I listened to Kale a lot over the years and still listen to him, even though he's not coaching at Oklahoma anymore. Just in hearing him talk, he's still a Sooner through and through. I mean, he'll slip. I've heard him on the Sports Animal, or no, I'm sorry, the Ref. He has the Gundy on Monday show on the Ref, and I've heard him on that. And when he was talking about Gillen Gabriel, he was still saying we, and he was talking about the Oklahoma offense, and he still says we. And you know, I don't know. It would, but I mean, look at Josh Heupel. I mean, if the check's right, could
yeah.
be.
Well,
I
Josh
think it would
Heupel
help.
is
I think it's going to help with Oklahoma going out of the Big 12
right.
to where he wouldn't have to face them.
Mhm. Well, Heupel has done a whale of a job in Knoxville.
Yeah, he has.
They have got in Tennessee, it's the most important game for them. And it's called the third week in October. Tennessee against Alabama. This year, it's at Bryant Denny. And the tradition is the winner smokes the cigars.
Hmm.
And they got to do it last year.
They
And
did.
also, because it was at Neyland,
Hmm.
the goalposts are somewhere in the Tennessee River right next to Neyland Stadium.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had to go find some
As I
goalposts.
recall, they were kind of running it short, trying to find some new
Yes.
goalposts to get up
Yeah, because
in
they
time
had to
for the
play
next
like
game.
the next week or the following week.
Hmm.
And everybody, I mean, athletic director and even the president was looking for
They
two
were. I remember
goalposts to
that.
put up. That was that was wild, to
Yep, that was
say the
wild.
least. But
Speaking of SEC rumors,
mhm,
I don't know if you've heard this one. Of course, we know ESPN Game Day we know Lee Corso's getting older. A lot of people are speculating this will probably be his last year and he'll hang it up.
Yeah, I think so too.
Have you heard who may replace him?
Have not heard.
Nick Saban.
If Nick decides to hang it up,
Hmm.
uh, there was a guy that was on, I was in fact, before we came on, uh, there's a website called Saturday Down South
Hmm.
and was talking about possibilities to replace Nick. The number one guy that he had, head coach at Oregon, Dan Lanning.
I can see that.
Yeah. Uh, it will be very interesting because I can tell you right now, the checkbook will be open.
Hmm.
I mean, they're going to pay him quite well, but they will not have to pay him what Nick's making.
No,
Nick is the highest paid college coach in college football.
they were talking a little bit about that if he switches over to game day to
Mhm.
become to take Corso's place at what ESPN's going to be willing to pay him to get him over there. He is definitely number one on their list.
Uh-huh. And
They have some
believe me,
backups, but
Disney Disney will pull up the Brinks truck.
yeah, I think so.
Speaking about SEC, had their basketball media day, uh,
Oh,
and on the men's side, Tennessee is picked to win it. Second is Texas A&M, Arkansas third, and Kentucky fourth.
wow. I was not expecting that.
Uh, two names as far as coaches are concerned, you may have heard of at Tennessee. Rick Barnes, former head coach at Texas,
Hmm.
and then Buzz Williams is at A&M.
Hmm.
So a couple of high-powered coaches, and then you got Eric Musselman at Arkansas, and of course Coach Cal down at Lexington. And it's going to be interesting. I've got possibility of working several Arkansas basketball games, not only men but also women as well. Was asked what games I could do, and I submitted it to them. So we'll just have to wait and see how they're going to broadcast the ball games. If they're going to be on, if they're digital, of course, it won't do them, but some of them may be produced where the uh, announcers are at home. They still do that, where the play-by-play and the color, they do the games from home, and they have an official stat person, which I've done, and I've done that at Tulsa a couple of years ago. In fact, after we got out of COVID, and I did two games up there, and I was Mark Neely's eyes uh, for a game. Mark was doing the play-by-play from home, and the only two people that were from ESPN that were inside the building, other than the camera people, was the producer. He was sitting where they would broadcast the game, and I was sitting at the scorer's table right next to the opponent's bench, and I'm doing a play-by-play back to either to the mothership at Bristol or in Charlotte, and I've done that a couple of times.
Seemed like that would be so difficult. You would think between the delay and just the
There's not, they don't get a delay with the when they send the signal to the broadcasters. Uh, I don't think they get a 7-second delay. So it's coming
Hmm.
probably from the truck to them. So that's how they do it. At least that's, I'm guessing on that part of it, how they do
Hmm.
game
Interesting.
inside, when they're not at the site.
Hmm.
They do that with basketball. They've done it with softball. I did a softball game at Arkansas where the announcers were home and I was the official stat person doing play by play, and I would give the graphics people, what the count was, or what who was up in the bullpen, et cetera, et cetera. So uh, that's a job that I enjoy doing over in Fayetteville, and I've told them if they need me in Tulsa or if they need me at OSU, I'd go there. OU,
Hmm.
well, it's 200 miles from the house from here, so they'd have to pay me mileage to get to Norman. So,
Yeah,
and if it was a Norman game, I would need for you to go with me if
I know that would be fantastic. Poor poor Coach Mosier and the OSU basketball. They've just really struggled lately.
yep, and they have the home game this year, the final game at the BOK against Arkansas. So right now, I'm not doing that game. That was not one of the games that they asked me to do. So the OU people will do that game.
That'd be fun. I hope something happens and you get to wind up doing that one. That would be fun for you.
That would be uh, there's enough guys in Tulsa that I know uh, that will get that ball game. So, but anyway, uh, anything else that we can wrap up before we get out of here on this Wednesday night?
Just one thing. Did you hear the report? Going back to Southern Cal, did you hear the report that came out of LA today
Mm-mm.
about Caleb Williams?
No, sir.
Reports are coming out, and I'll have to follow up to see exactly what's going to happen. Maybe we can talk about it more next week. Whatever team he's wanting to go to, whatever pro team he's wanting to go to, which many think he might want to go pro the way this season's going for him. He may want to go ahead and jump ship and go pro. He's wanting partial ownership of the team
Interesting.
to be their quarterback.
I don't know if
I don't see any general
I
manager.
don't see anybody. They might want to give him 1%, but I don't see that happening. I mean,
I
I
I
know
think that
Jerry Jones would not do that. No, I know
no, no,
Jerry
no,
would not do that at all. Clark Hunt would not do that.
no, not a
Uh,
chance.
I think that's called wishful thinking.
That's what I think too.
So,
Um, he's getting a lot of backlash from that, especially. I mean, for that to come out this week after that performance against Notre Dame,
mhm.
I just like. But you go back and again, I mentioned this earlier though. If you watch that press conference after the Notre Dame game, his body language sure said a lot.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see what happens.
Well, be an interesting little story to follow, see what
Yes,
happens. I
it sure will.
I don't see it happening at all. I think that would be opening up way too big of a Pandora's box.
Yep, yep. And the SC people will take care of that pretty quick.
Yeah, they will.
So, well, I think it's time to shut it down for this week. We'll talk about the ball games that will be played over the weekend. Talk about high school football and maybe even possible playoff implications for some ball clubs. Believe it or not, 2 more weeks in the high school season, and then we're in the playoffs. It doesn't seem like, we just
Wow.
got started, and all of a sudden now we're near the end of the season, and we're
Yeah.
about ready to start talking about basketball. In fact, the girls, they've been practicing since the 1st of October, and also schools that don't have football.
Hmm.
They started practicing. That's always a tradition here in Oklahoma. 1st of October, you can start basketball for the girls and also for non-football schools. And the
Mhm.
non-football schools, they will start playing uh, that first Friday night in November.
Yeah.
That's
It's
people
coming. It's coming
like,
fast.
yeah. Give you an example. OK and Oklahoma, 2 teams over in Muskogee County, they don't have football. They'll start up that first Friday night in November,
Mhm.
and they'll have a little trouble trying to find officials because some of the basketball officials also call football,
Mhm.
and
And
the
that on
shortage of,
top of the shortage.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. They may not play them on Friday. They might wind up playing Saturday,
They could.
and maybe either a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday evening. But that will be talked about here in the next couple of weeks, along with the new rule change in high school basketball. We'll talk about that come next week. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Cover 4 podcast. For my partner, Randy Gibson, I'm Jim Trickett. We'll see you next week. So long, everybody.